What's up, guys? It's Bethany Flash.
And today, you're joining Bethany and I for a 6-month, well actually 7-month, and 6,000-ish mile review of her 2025 Tesla Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive. And while Bethany goes and gets her Starbucks before we hit the road, we're going to do this as a little bit of a driving review. We're going to put it on FSD. We're going shopping today, but this is the car. This is a 2025 Tesla Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive. This is the legacy Model Y, if you will. Previous generation, not a Juniper. And this was basically right before they came out with the refresh for the Model Y. So we have the older style wheels. Those are aftermarket covers. If you haven't already, definitely check out my must-have accessories video for the Model Y. This is the second Model Y that I have had personally. Previously, I had the 4680 Model Y, which was, as a Model Y, fantastic. As a charging and road trip vehicle, pretty terrible, but that's a different story. That's not the vehicle we're talking about today. And this is my wife's daily driver. I have the Lightning, of course, that you guys are familiar with. But this is what she drives every day. She doesn't drive a ton, but she's been driving this, and I really want to get her impressions as a non-car enthusiast on what she thinks of it. And we have a Cybertruck over there. And real quick, before we get into Bethany's thoughts and everything, I did want to mention, if you need a Tesla referral code, if this video is helpful or any of my other videos were helpful, definitely click the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Really appreciate you guys using that referral. It helps out the channel a lot. So we're in the car now. Let's reset our trip A. We're going to be going, I think like 120 miles or so today, but you guys are just going to join for the first 30 or so. But there you can see the odometer. So 6,805 miles. We got this with 654 miles. This was a demo car and had a pretty substantial discount as a result. This one we did as a lease, as I've mentioned before. There you can see our energy consumption over those miles, 264 watt-hour per mile. However, I always like to mention that Tesla only counts the energy that's used while the vehicle is in gear, not the energy that's used while the vehicle's sitting, which on this vehicle in the last 6 months, or sorry, not 6 months, the last few months since I've gotten the Lightning, this vehicle has actually used more energy while sitting than while driving because my wife does not drive very much. So that definitely skews that number and actually puts it over 500 watt-hour per mile effectively when you factor in all the preconditioning, Sentry mode, cabin overheat protection, all of that fun stuff. Let's just go into the energy app here real quick just to give an example. So here, 4% has been used in park and 9.2% has been consumed driving over the last 30 miles. So that's pretty substantial, and that's only going from, I think it was 99% that we charged it up to, down to 85%. So you can see how that would scale then across the entire charge. So this is an awesome vehicle. Here we'll show the software version and all that fun stuff. So this is, of course, the long range rear-wheel drive. Otherwise, it would say dual motor. We have hardware 4. We have full self-driving. Software, we have the subscription thanks to you guys using my referral. And we're on FSD version 13.2.9, and we're going to be going to Gaffney outlets today. So about 60 miles each way. There is a supercharger there, but I'm not concerned about peak speeds, and we're going to be arriving there with 65%. So I'm not even going to bother putting in the supercharger as the destination to precondition because realistically, I don't really care. And then we're going to be asking my wife some questions about her experience with the car and her thoughts, and as well as her history of cars. To get a gauge of her impressions as just a normal person that now drives a Model Y. So also want to give a thank you to you guys. I think that's reversed, but that's 15K. My lovely wife got me these balloons, and thank you all for helping the channel reach 15,000 subscribers. It's a pretty big accomplishment. Couldn't have happened without you guys. So definitely, if you're not already, hit the subscribe button. And of course, on this video in particular, hit the like button. And I would love to hear what you guys think as well down below. So without further ado, let's get FSD going. I'll put the phone on the mount, and then we're going to record, and you're going to join us for this drive, and we're going to talk to Bethany and ask about her experience with this car. So I'm also trying out a new app here called Road Camera, or Road Capture, I think it's called, that lets you record the front and the back camera simultaneously. So definitely let me know what you guys think, rather than using 2 GoPros or 2 phones. I think this should work pretty well, but I guess we'll find out. And here we're gonna activate FSD. I'm not touching the pedals or the wheel or anything. We're just gonna start FSD, press and hold. And now let's go for this adventure. Let's see if we can get out of this parking lot. It struggles a little bit sometimes. But Bethany, why don't you tell us about your experience with previous vehicles and kind of what vehicles you've driven and your thoughts on cars overall? That was a lot of questions.
Yeah.
How about let's start with what car did you have before this?
A Highlander.
What kind of Highlander?
2007.
And how long did you have that car?
It's the car I learned to drive in, so over 15 years, I guess.
Or close to 15 years?
15 years or something like that.
And why did you keep that car so long?
Because it's a great car and I didn't need a new car, and I don't, prior to you, care to have newer cars because it's a very good car. I don't drive enough to warrant wanting a new car every year or two, and I was raised in a family that just bought a new car every decade or so and then drove that car for the next decade as long as it was functional and safe.
So it was quite a change of pace meeting me in my many cars.
I think it was harder for you to believe that I'd driven one car my whole life than you. Than me to believe you had driven so many.
Yes. For context, Bethany drives about 2,000 to 5,000 miles a year. I think closer to like the 2,000 or 3,000 miles at this point. Especially when she had the Highlander, we would almost never take that anywhere together. Whereas now, I mean, we'll probably put the 10,000 miles or so that we got on the lease in this car, but a lot of that will be me behind the wheel and both of us just in the car versus her by herself. Bethany by herself probably drives like 2,000 miles a year, if on the high end, if I had to guess. Yes. Basically to work and back.
Pretty much, yeah.
If we're together, it's usually just me driving. So tell us about your experience with FSD, both previously and now.
Previously in terms of what?
Like, what did you think of FSD when you were first introduced to the concept by me?
I did not like it, and the original variations of FSD were terrifying.
That was in the version 11.6, I think it was, but pretty earlier versions. She refused to ride in the car even with me if I had FSD on, whereas now, tell us what you think of FSD.
It's much better than it was, and it does definitely get me to and from work for the most part. It definitely does some random things, and there's definitely some quirks to it, but for the most part, it is very functional.
Anyway, sorry. So we got interrupted. Kyle called me about a adapter question, so that's why there's a little bit of a jump cut here. But, so Bethany, you use FSD every day. Tell us kind of your morning ritual when you go to the office. Like, what do you do?
Get in the car. It can't handle our driveway, so get it out of the garage and down the driveway, and then engage FSD typically pretty immediately. Maybe like a little later, but for the most part fairly immediately, and then it drives pretty much the whole way there, and then I turn it off because it's terrible at navigating parking lots and it wants to turn in a spot that it can't turn always, and then I click auto park once I find the parking spot I want, and it parks, and then I get out.
And it generally does a pretty good job?
Does a good job at the driving part, but the parking lot is an issue and driveways are issues.
Yeah. The reason it can't get up or down our driveway, well, it can't get down because it's too steep, so it thinks that it's gonna like crash into something or can't see low enough. And then I don't think we've ever really tried going up the driveway since we always back into the garage anyway, so that's...
FSD doesn't recognize our driveway, so it won't ever put itself in the driveway because it doesn't understand how.
It always tries to go to our neighbor that's one driveway before ours down the street, which is a little silly, but I mean, if we're complaining about having to drive the like first and last 100 feet of each drive, we're doing a pretty good job.
It's also preferable because I prefer to back in anyways, so I don't want it, even though it does back into parking spots, but I don't want it.
Currently, FSD does not technically support actually parking. It's just, it sometimes does it.
It's a totally different functionality. Like, you have to be going less than, I think it's 8 miles an hour in the parking lot, and then you'll get an option that shows you the parking spots or what it thinks are parking spots, which isn't always accurate, but for the most part, as long as you use your own eyes, you can tell if it's accurate, and you can click it and tell it to auto park, which is a different functionality than FSD.
Yeah, they definitely need to merge those branches, if you will, because right now, you'll be driving through a parking lot, you'll drive right by a perfectly good parking spot, but to actually have the car auto park, you have to disengage FSD and then tap on the spot and then let it do its thing, whereas it should be able to just fluidly go from FSD into auto park functionality, or like prompt you with different spots as you get near there.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the different creature comforts, if you will? So I know your car had very little technology and like kind of auxiliary function, if you will. So, I don't know, keeping climate on, preconditioning, the app, all the cameras, all that.
Yeah. I mean, coming from a car that didn't even have Bluetooth or aux cords, just a like old-fashioned radio, I guess you could say, had a CD player, but that was about the fanciness to the car. Yeah, it still has a cassette and a CD player. No backup camera, no cameras in general. A very typical gas car, no remote start, no anything. It's definitely nice. The one complaint I always had with my car was not having a backup camera. The radio didn't bother me in and of itself because I enjoyed getting kind of updates in the morning on radio of current happenings in the world, I guess you could say. But now definitely, I mean, not getting into a cold car or a hot car is definitely a luxury. Having the cameras and Sentry mode and all those things to be able to just be aware of what's around you or what happened around your car while you're not in it is very nice. It's definitely a very techy car, but a very basic car at the same time. I do wish it had the like heads up, like whatever it's called.
An instrument cluster?
I don't know.
Like a screen like what my Lightning has, or something that projects onto the windshield? Okay.
Screen like that.
She's talking about
I mean, the heads up could be fine too, but just having speed in front of your face versus having to adjust to looking to the right all the time, that was definitely a major adjustment coming from a car that everything that I needed to see was always right in front of me. But you adjust pretty quickly, I think, to that part of it.
And something else I did using Tessie is that I scheduled an automation that if the car was at her office a little bit before she left normally, that it would automatically precondition the car down to a comfortable temperature. And if for some reason she was there longer, then it would turn off 10 minutes past than her normal leaving time at the office using a geofence. So that way it was kind of smart, and then also would auto trigger if she was working her alternate schedule to run at that time instead. So I made that a little bit smarter for her and made it
it makes
nicer.
you not have to think about it at all. Because I don't think to like, especially if you're in meetings up till the end of your day, like you don't think to turn on your car per se until like you're walking out the door. So it's nice that it just automatically does it.
Yeah, usually even in the most extreme conditions, 15 minutes of running the climate is enough. We did discover that when it's really hot out, 10 minutes that I originally had it for most of the year wasn't enough to like get it down to 70 or so comfortable temperature. I mean, it was definitely better than what it would have been, but it didn't get it quite to the target temperature. So over the summer, we increased it to 15 minutes rather than the 10 that we were running it at kind of the rest of the year.
It does kill a lot of battery in general, like the keep function.
Yep.
Which we've definitely seen over the summer. Like even with minimal driving, my car needs to be charged significantly more than in the winter with probably about the same amount of driving. So that is an adjustment too.
Yeah, Sentry mode of course uses a fair amount of power, but cabin overheat, especially if you have it set to use AC and trigger at I think it's 85 or 90 degrees, that uses quite a bit of energy. For context, Bethany drives probably 8 to 10 miles a day, roughly round trip. And sometimes that will use 12 to 15% battery just for that, which is pretty crazy. Wow, this guy is driving terribly.
I mean, again, it's a luxury. We don't have to do the cabin overheat on it. We don't have to precondition, or not precondition, but auto start it beforehand. And if we didn't do that, it probably would lose a lot less battery. But you have the functionality and we have the access to be able to charge it, so why not?
Yeah, I'm lucky that I can charge it either off my truck or at my office, and we have free charging, so it's not as big of a deal to use so much energy, but it's definitely not the most efficient method of using the vehicle. And if you have more scarce charging or you have expensive charging, then I would probably recommend not using them so freely, if you will, like we do. What do you think of the car overall? Would you buy another one? Are there things you'd change about it?
I would buy another one, yes. I would prefer it to be more of a true SUV and have more functionality coming from a Highlander. That it's an older Highlander, so it's probably more of an equivalent of today's RAV4, but at least spatially inside was very functional usage because it doesn't have a slanted roof. It's more of a box essentially inside. So it functions a lot better for if you want to move in general, move furniture, buy large things. It just works a lot better. I like that is higher off the ground than this is. This to me is a car. I know they call it an SUV, but
it's a crossover.
Yeah, I would never refer to it as an SUV. So I would prefer it to be a bit higher off of the ground and a little bit more functional space to use. An adjustment was definitely because of the curved back, that your back window is definitely kind of unusable for all intents and purposes. It really, you can't see much of anything because of where it cuts so high on the car. I'm not that tall in comparison to Brandon, who maybe can see a little bit more out of it.
I mean, it's just small in general.
Yeah, it's not it needs the cameras it has, because otherwise you would probably not feel very safe in the car, just needing to use your own eyes to use all the windows around you.
Yeah, it would definitely be a struggle if you didn't have such a good backup camera and the ability to park itself in a lot of situations, because if your only way of seeing to the back was through the back window, good luck.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, it is a good car. You feel overall good in it. I mean, having FSD as a functionality, I think once you get used to it, adjusting back to not having it would be a rough transition, I think. Especially as someone who does use it more often than maybe
and
even
really
the average person.
Driving.
I don't know. Yeah. Driving is your thing, not so much my thing. I was never a car person. I'm still not a car person. I know a lot about cars now, but that's not out of me having desire to learn it. It's just me learning by happenstance, by being around.
And so we got this right before the new Model Y came out. We didn't know what the new Model Y would be yet. I mean, we had some ideas based on the rumors and things, and also just based on what they changed from the old Model 3 to the new Model 3. So I think we had a fairly good idea of what the changes would be.
Yeah.
But we also got some fairly substantial discounts on this. We got it at the end of the year. We used a bunch of referral credits, which helped get out of the 4680 Model Y, and the numbers just made sense. But assuming all things equal cost-wise and such, do you have thoughts on this versus the new Model Y, or if you wish you had waited?
I think the only feature on the new Model Y that would make me want the new Model Y is the front camera, but beyond that, for the price difference, no, I don't think the new one's necessarily worth it if you had the option between this one and that one.
Yeah, and I'd say just 2023, mid-2023 and later, they have the improved suspension, and it makes a huge difference in the ride of the Model Y. The early ones just ride horribly. They ride like a donkey cart, basically. Whereas, this one and even my previous Model Y, they're way quieter, they ride way better, and especially if you can get one with hardware 4, from a functionality perspective, you're really not missing anything compared to the new Model Y, except for maybe front camera, ventilated seats, and like some slight improvements. But we went and drove the new Model Y kind of when it first came out. Like, yes, it is better, but it's not worth paying more for. Of course, now that you can get them for basically the same price as we got this one for, like, there's no reason not to get the new one, especially if you're looking at like leasing or when they have the financing promos and stuff. But also, I think it's worth looking at used ones of the late model previous generation, because there are some really good deals you can get. And if you can get one of these for under 30 or even in the 20s, especially if you get a little bit higher mileage one or like a 2023, I mean, it's pretty hard to deny the value there. It's a very capable vehicle.
Yeah. This car, I will say, kind of going back a question, but it is a louder car. Coming from a Highlander and even being in his truck where they're just higher off the ground, your road noise is very minimal inside both of those cars. Coming to a car like this where you're so close to the ground, you hear just everything. So that is kind of a con to the car.
I don't think it's so much the height. I think it's just the way that the sound is insulated.
No matter what it is.
Yes, regardless, it is a lot louder than even my Lightning, which is older and has more mileage. So if anything, it might be more worn. But yeah, it's gotten a lot better over the years from Tesla on the Model Y and on the Model 3, but this is still not the benchmark as far as NVH.
It's not going to bother you on a day-to-day basis, but if you're used to something different, your transition, you're going to notice it a lot more.
And especially on those longer days, it might fatigue you slightly more than if the car was quieter. You might have to have your music a little louder. I find that if I'm listening to like a podcast or on a phone call or something where like I really need to hear clearly what someone is saying versus just like music that you don't necessarily need to hear every word, that you're going to want to turn it up a little bit more than you would otherwise just to compensate, especially on the interstate when you have the wind noise as well. On the side roads and like day to day around the city, it doesn't really matter. It's plenty quiet in that scenario.
Yeah.
Comfort wise, what do you think of this car?
Overall, I'd say it's comfortable. I think the seats are more comfortable than your Lightnings. I mean,
I would agree.
Other than that, I mean, I do prefer being like higher off the ground and like having more like just visible space around me that this car doesn't give you, just because of the slanting and everything and just where your blind spots are. So to me, that gives me slight discomfort because I don't feel as able to see around me as easily without my cameras, which of course again I have them, so it's not the end of the world. But just from a comforts perspective, that's definitely something that is a little bit more of a con to me. But seat and ride wise, it's fine.
What do you think of the app updates, things like that, just like the computer on wheels part of the car?
I mean, especially now having seen like having my car and your car side to side and having Ford app versus Tesla app, you can see how terrible the Ford app is when you have the Tesla app that can show you like if the car is even in motion, if the car is being charged, if your windows are open. It can give you kind of, it can tell you exactly how fast your car is moving, if it's away from you, if it's in park, all of those
ETA
things.
to the destination, like I can see when she's driving home just by pulling up the app. I can see the state of charge she's going to arrive home with, the time she's going to arrive home with, and even her current speed.
And the location that they're going.
Yeah.
In general.
Which like is very handy, especially if you had like a teenager or something and you want to keep an eye on them. Like I think that'd be really good. Or if even something were to happen, I could see exactly like where you are, what happened, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean the tech in this thing is unreal. I think that is definitely a pro for the car. I think that's what they thrive on and that's what they build the cars around, which is evident because it just functions really well. Overall, being able to route through the car, not have to use things like Google Maps like he does in his Lightning.
Or a better route planner or anything. Like,
yeah.
I never think about using a third-party route planner in this car because you just don't have to. Like, sure, you might use plug share and things to look at maybe hotel charging or non-superchargers, but realistically, in a Tesla, you don't really have a reason to use anything but superchargers these days, unless you're going like on some obscure route, or maybe you're price shopping, or maybe you're in California where the superchargers get a bit crowded. But even in California where the superchargers are crowded, the other options are probably even more crowded and worse, or you'd have to wait longer. So
they're definitely built in a way that you can feel confident to just get in your car, get to your destination, and get back to wherever you're trying to go without having to think twice. So I think that's a good side of the car.
Yeah, you don't have to be an EV nerd to be able to just hop in this and go anywhere you want. Like, I always say it's the benchmark of, could I hand this to one of our parents and say, hey, go drive this across the country, and with like minimal instruction, we could hand this to either of our parents and be like, hey, just put in your destination. They might almost be confused as to how simple it is. Like, what do you mean that you just have to plug it in? They're like, yep, that's all you do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just having all of it integrated, you don't have to think about paying when you get to the charger. It's already set up through the app. You walk up, you pull out the charge cord and pull it up to the car, and you're going to be able to just automatically have it open and charge for you. All of those functions are things that make it easy that if someone else needed to take the car could. I will say it's something that if someone's not accustomed to an EV, I wouldn't say you want to give them an EV without a lesson, essentially, because of one pedal driving and things like that that don't work typically on a gas car. People who aren't familiar with an EV car in general, not that every EV uses it, but that was a major adjustment coming from someone who'd driven their whole life in a gas car with two pedals.
And I think the lesson that you'd give to someone hopping in a Tesla is much shorter than the lesson you'd give to someone hopping into just about any other EV.
Yeah, sure. I do.
What do you think of one pedal driving? Not that you really drive the car a whole lot yourself with FSD, but when you do, what do you think of it?
I mean, I think it's just kind of like riding a bike. Like, you adjust to it and it's just what you get used to. I don't think it's any better or worse than needing a gas pedal versus brake pedal. I think it's just maybe slightly easier because you're not having to move your leg around to do stuff, but until you truly learn how the car moves and things like that, I don't think it's a comfort thing at all at first, because you're not used to just lifting your foot and your car slowing down.
All the way to the stop.
Yeah, but you do have to adjust to learn exactly how quickly that happens, because you could still need the brake pedal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's just a learning curve.
And just for clarification, since I think this video might go outside of my normal EV nerd circle of viewers, the car does still have two pedals. It has a gas pedal and a brake pedal, but what we mean by one pedal driving is that you essentially don't have to use the brake pedal, but in normal driving, to slow down, you just lift off the accelerator pedal and then it can come to a complete stop. It's kind of like engine braking or downshifting in a gas car, for example. I think it's worth noting, I have not touched the steering wheel or either pedal this entire time since we left Starbucks. I've just been sitting here. FSD has been doing its thing. It's done all the lane changes we've done. It's gone through the interchanges. It got on the interstate. It went through the Starbucks parking lot. All of it just entirely without my input at all. I'm just looking forward, somewhat looking at the camera here and there, glancing back and forth. That's the camera's mounted on the windshield, of course. And I mean, it just doesn't get any easier than this for a road trip. And I have the Comma 3X with Blue Pilot running in my Lightning, and that's really good on the interstate, but Tesla is just absolutely the benchmark for self-driving, or not even self-driving, but just like driver assistance systems in general. If you've watched the Out-of-Spec Hogback Challenge series, they've tested most of the major ADAS systems out there. So ADAS is Advanced Driver Assist Systems, and full self-driving is the only one that can go from the starting parking lot and then all the way through the entire challenge back to the parking lot without needing any input at all. Whereas a lot of the other systems struggle to even stay in the lanes on the interstate, whereas this can do the whole thing. So I think a lot of people just don't appreciate the capability of FSD. It's of course not perfect. Nothing is perfect, and Tesla, even with all the praise we're giving it, is not perfect. The charging could be a lot better. Full self-driving is not perfect. The parking issues, and it just does some weird stuff sometimes. Like, I'd say a lot of the issues of full self-driving can be attributed to actually the navigation data being bad versus the driving itself. Like, sometimes it'll go very strange routes, like out of a parking lot and then back onto the road. but I don't really blame FSD for that.
No.
It's the nav is not telling it how to or where to drive in order for the car to figure out how to drive.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing with FSD, I think, is knowing that it's not a solution to driving. You still have to pay complete attention because it does not know how to do certain things. It doesn't recognize if an emergency vehicle is coming your way with all its lights on. It doesn't know to pull over. It doesn't recognize if a school bus is in front of you with its stop signs out that it has to register the stop sign and stop for you. It doesn't recognize if you're driving in a school zone and a school zone speed limit sign is on to slow down to the school zone speed limit sign. So they're all things that you still have to be fully coherent and aware of what's going on as you're driving. Because as good as it is and it's capable of getting you from point A to point B, the things that you learn as just a normal driver, it doesn't necessarily understand. It's very good at recognizing if there's a person in the road or if there's an animal in the road or something like that, or even another vehicle, but little nuanced things like that maybe don't happen on every person's daily drive and things like that, it does not understand how to work.
And I think part of the counterpoint to that is because you're letting FSD do most of the effort, it actually allows you as the driver, observer, if you will, to pay closer attention to all of the other things happening around you, because you're not having to focus necessarily on, am I still driving straight within the line? Because the car is very good at that. But you can pay attention to, oh, there's a school bus a couple 100 feet away, I need to slow down for that. Whereas if you were actually driving, you might be kind of just blinders only looking a few cars ahead of you. So you actually have a little bit more capability as the driver to pay attention to all the things happening. Or like, I don't necessarily have to be watching super close what the car directly in front of me is doing. I can look hundreds of feet or half a mile in front of me and see that traffic is slowing down and kind of already see that or make a plan if I want to exit earlier or whatever. So I think there's a benefit there, and it's also just way more relaxing than having to do all of it yourself.
Agreed.
At least I think so.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
Overall, it's a good car. I think it is a helpful car for a lot of people, and it does everything most would need. I think the general complaints about Tesla not having a bigger car are real for a reason, because this being essentially the biggest car kind of.
Well, they have the Model X, but the Model X is really not substantially bigger.
No.
I think what she means by that is Tesla really needs to make like an EV9, Ioniq 9, Rivian R1S type vehicle that it's a true 3-row SUV, or it doesn't even necessarily need the 3 rows, but just a full-size, or even like mid-size, I guess, SUV rather than just a compact crossover or small SUV kind of thing like the Model Y, or even, I mean, the Model X is a small SUV at most. It has pretty good cargo space, but you cannot realistically use all 6 seats, take a road trip, and have the stuff for those 6 people because there's just not enough.
Yeah, I think just making a car that's more functional for the person who has to haul things around or do things to not have to worry about, like, oh, when I shut the trunk, is it going to actually like close on it, or is it going to have to like squash it down or something like that. I think plenty of people don't prefer small cars. A lot of people, of course, do. There are plenty of people who drive them, but for the people who do prefer to drive bigger things, being this close to the ground and things like that is not for everybody. But overall, if you want, I guess you could say, the luxury of a car that's able to take you from point A to point B with very minimal effort on your part, then this is a great car for that. It's definitely an adjustment if you've never driven an EV before, but it doesn't take long to adjust to it. I would say, if anything, it takes longer because if you are utilizing FSD, you're not driving the car, so you're not becoming aware of your car and your kind of surroundings with it as quickly as you would in a normal car that you're driving yourself.
Yeah, I would say you could buy a new Tesla today and you could drive 5,000 miles and only drive with your hands controlling the wheel and pedals for maybe a couple hundred miles of that, if that, depending on your type of driving. Like, you could do FSD for almost all of your miles, which is crazy to think about, because when I got my first Model Y, the 4680Y, that was not the case. Like, FSD was there, but it was nowhere near the capability of what it is today. And now you take delivery and you might drive a mile or two to calibrate the sensors, and then you can just put on FSD, or depending on the car, it might even be calibrated already before you take delivery. That you could literally take delivery and not touch the wheels or pedal to go home. It's crazy how far that has come in such a short period. And now that Tesla has the robo-taxi running, they are with supervisors in the passenger seat in Austin and with it in the driver's seat in the Bay Area. Like, they're using a variation of the software, probably a bit more advanced, and literally running a robo-taxi service, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I would say overall the cons that we've mentioned are mostly nitpicking things beyond some of the like safety concerns within FSD, but outside of that, I'd say the concerns are primarily within FSD, which is more the functionality of the system than it is the car itself. I think the car itself, the overall con to me is there's not a lot of like space inside, like cup holder wise, or
we've been ruined by the F-150 Lightning that has, I think, what is 5 cup holders just in the console area. You could probably fit, I don't know, 6 bottles of something on each door, and then you've also got 4 cup holders just in the back seat, so 2 on each door, or 1 on each door, plus bottle space, plus the flip down. So like, this only having 4 cup holders
and a very small console spot and a very small glove box spot. There's just not a lot of space if you like to keep a lot of things in your car. I think
which
a lot
I do.
of
Guilty.
Yeah, he likes to. I think a lot of women also like to, just from like hygiene standpoints, from just snacks, or if you're a parent, you have
all sorts
things
of
to
things
keep in the car, diapers or whatever. So I think it's not great from that perspective. Of course, you can add bags and things like that, but that requires you to put it in space that you don't necessarily want to. Other thing that would be different if you're recommending the new Model Y to people is that if you like your stocks, they removed the stock. So you only have one stock on
Yeah, you only have the turn signal stock, which I think in an FSD world
is fine. But
yeah, and I actually don't really mind the swipe to shift. The buttons for the turn signals are what really drive me nuts on the like new Model 3. But since the new Model Y has the turn signal stock, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's just I think that would be a more massive adjustment for someone who's used to having like a full-on shifter and then all of your stocks on either side to change your wipers or things like that, which are all functionalities that in a Tesla you can do from the screen. You can turn your wipers on, you can do other things without you touching a stock for it, but that's just not necessarily intuitive to someone who hasn't learned to drive in a Tesla.
Yeah, I would say it's certainly not a deal breaker, but I do still think it's dumb.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker. I just think that that's some of the things that they have removed to make it more sleek are comforts to people who have driven maybe a gas car their whole life. And when they're making that shift is going to be a massive adjustment to them versus if they, like your F-150 that is identical to a gas F-150, there's no adjustment to gas to electric necessarily with that.
It's
just having to learn you don't go to the gas station, you go charge your car.
Yeah.
So whereas Teslas, I think, made it like you can't go from like a Toyota Corolla or something like that into this car and feel like you're driving essentially the same thing, even though from the outside they're very similar sized. Yeah. Maybe that's not the perfect size comparison car, but you know.
Yeah, and I haven't said it yet, but the charging on this, it's good. Like, it's, I would say, barely acceptable performance for fast charging in 2025. It's improved, or not, it hasn't improved, but it's counteracted a bit by how efficient this car is. So, for example, we're getting 260 watt-hour per mile driving right now, which is excellent. And I think that counteracts the mediocre charging a bit. But it's still a Tesla. You still have to pull in basically dead if you want peak speeds. You're not going to want to charge above like 60, 70% if you want to be the most efficient on the road trip. Whereas I've gotten a little spoiled with the F-150 Lightning with its kind of boost profile that, like yesterday when we went to Buc-ee's, we were able to pull in at 59% or whatever and still get full power and then charge up to 80%, and it didn't go below 120 kilowatts until it got to 80%. So
yeah, it's a fully functional car as it is. You can road trip it. You
Yep.
can do anything you want to do with it. Will you have an easier time potentially in a different car, like road tripping the Lightning versus this? If you're a family, road tripping a Model Y would probably be kind of miserable because it would be way too tight in here to have.
yeah, not to do with the charging.
No.
No, from the charging perspective, you'd be totally fine. Like, this is, I give Tesla a hard time because I know it can be so much better looking at like the Chinese market and just what other cars are doing, like the Kia EV6, Ioniq 5 from a charging perspective, but this is still totally usable as a family road trip vehicle and still one of the fastest road trip vehicles out there as far as EVs go.
I mean, from a comparison standpoint, we drove the Lightning and the Y together back from Virginia, and
They were about
they had about the same. We needed to stop the same amount of times. We needed to take the same amount of time, essentially, between both cars to charge them, and therefore it's not really any different if you're taking.
Yeah, the Lightning is of course much less efficient, has a much bigger battery, but there's been a couple routes that I've played both on the in-car in the Tesla and then like a better route planner with the Lightning to compare what the routes would be, and in many cases they're literally identical. Like the Lightning might have 5-10 minute longer stops, but like from a distance between charges and like which stops to go to, it's not to the point that it changes your route. I think the main difference in EVs becomes if you can do a common route that you do without charging at all, then definitely that's a big improvement versus an EV that you have to stop and charge. But I think in most cases, for most people, there's not, you're either going with a very expensive EV to accomplish that, or if you're having to stop at all, the difference between making a 5-minute stop and a 10-minute stop, you're not going to notice.
No, I think that is an adjustment for someone coming from a gas car to an EV in general is, I think that's most people's, one of their major concerns when making that switch from a gas car to an electric car is the length of time it takes to charge your car. I think a lot of people are accustomed to the gas way of road tripping, which is you get from point A to point B as efficiently as you can with as minimal stops as you can. Growing up in a family that did road trip a lot, we weren't the family that stopped a ton and like stopped at a restaurant or anything like that. It was you stopped at the rest area, you made some sandwiches from the cooler, and you got back on the road.
Yeah.
So coming from that mentality of going as quickly as possible, it was a big adjustment. When we first met him, he had the other Tesla, essentially, or even the Rivian at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, those were a big difference.
Your first road trip experience was in the Rivian, and we took that to Atlanta, I think was our first, like, meaningful trip. Or I guess Wilmington, but, like, your first trip that we took that we had to stop midway was to Atlanta, which is at the Greenville Electrify America, which is notoriously, it's only 4 stalls. There's often a line. Like, it was not a good first experience for you. It's at a Sam's Club of all places that, like,
it's an adjustment.
Yeah, like, her seeing that the first time was not good.
Like, our first long road trip was probably Minnesota, and that was definitely, that was a big adjustment. That definitely took a lot of patience, I guess you could say, because coming from my mentality where I don't want to stop for any given period of time on a road trip, I want to get there as efficiently as possible. That was a big change versus now that I've grown accustomed to like the EV way of road tripping, which is just a little bit different of hopefully your charger's at something with an amenity, you're able to like go to the bathroom, you're able to find snacks, and it's not necessarily at a gas station where you're paying astronomical prices for your food or snacks.
Yep.
Like most of these we stop at are at Walmarts or Targets or things where you're paying regular prices for food. It makes it feel a little better, and you just get more used to like having the time to take a walk in the middle of the trip or something like that, and you just learn to time it in. You know that it's going to take you a little bit longer than if you were taking a gas car, but it is a big adjustment if you're first doing it.
Yeah, and I'd say for a lot of the shorter trips that I think most people would do, the time added is not that substantial, because like if you're taking, say, a 400-mile trip and you have kids or whatever, or even if you're just stopping to get lunch, you're probably going to stop for half hour to an hour regardless. And you kind of just adapt that. You try to plan your meals around when you're charging roughly, or get, and now that you have so many different options for charging, like you can look on the map and see, oh, there's these 4 different charging options. Which one makes sense from a timing perspective? Which one has the best amenities? Like sometimes we'll go on road trips that one stop will be at a Sheetz, one will be at a Starbucks, one will be at a Chick-fil-A, one will be at a Walmart, for example. Just random picking common site hosts of charging. But like if we're wanting to get lunch, we'll probably stop at the Chick-fil-A. If we're wanting to make it a really quick stop and we want, like, it's the afternoon and we know we're going to be on the road for another few hours, probably Starbucks to get some caffeine. Or if we need to stock up on like whatever stuff before we get to our destination, we'd probably pick the Walmart.
Yeah.
So it just really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And now, at least in most areas, you have so many charging options that you can kind of take your pick of what makes the most sense for you. And oftentimes you'll have the choice of, do you want the one that's the closest on and off the interstate? Do you want the one that has better amenities but might be a little bit more of a detour? Or do you want the better food? And I mean, for us, some common trips we do are Charlotte to the Raleigh area or Charlotte to the Myrtle Beach area. And unfortunately, neither of those trips are doable round trip without charging. But to be able to get an EV that could do either of those trips round trip without charging, it's about 300 miles or so round trip. And just given how traffic is here, you're probably going 70 to 80 miles per hour most of the time. So it's a pretty challenging use case for an EV.
Yeah.
And very few EVs could do that in one charge. Probably Lucid Air Grand Touring, probably not even Touring, realistically. Silverado EV, but then you'd have the massive battery and it'd be expensive. But then there's also the balance of, if you do have that massive battery, you could do all your charging at home. So, I don't know. There's a lot of things to consider, but I think overall, just sticking back to the Model Y, this is a fantastic car. I think I could recommend this to anyone, whether you're looking at this car and you're buying used, or you're looking at the new version, which all the good things about this car still apply. It doesn't have anything different that's a negative. I think,
all of
the
its
new Y
features
is
are enhancements.
Yeah.
Nothing functionality-wise, it's identical.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to my videos about the new Y when it first came out, my only real complaints about it were that at that point it was more expensive. Because I wouldn't pay more for the new Model Y. It doesn't have any functional improvements. It doesn't have like 120 or 240 volt outlets. It doesn't have a bigger battery. It doesn't have better charging. It has some minor improvements that are definitely all improvements. And the overall package is still excellent. So it's a great car.
It was the plan to get the new Model Y right
For
after
me.
getting this car. So if it had been a lower price point, we probably would wind up with that idea. But I will say at this point, us having the 2-car solution of having a very functional truck and having a car that's good for city driving, being where we're generally located, is definitely more ideal. And that was FSD failing.
Yep, that was a disengagement. I think it would have done it, but it definitely made that driver a little angry, but it's okay.
It does not. That is, I guess, another FSD thing. When you get maybe waved on if you're on an interstate and you have traffic and someone's saying like, yes, go over, if FSD does not agree you have enough space, even though you do,
Yep.
It will not move for you.
It's not the most courteous driver.
It's very nice sometimes, but in other cases,
Yeah.
it's almost too nice.
And we are on
actually,
the hurry profile right now.
which is different.
But anyway, if you guys are shopping a new Model Y or any new Tesla, I do have my referral code down below. Would definitely appreciate if this video helped you or any of my previous videos helped you, that you do use that link down below. I also have some other accessories, accessories link down below. And I have a whole accessories video, as I mentioned before, that if you're getting one of these or have already gotten one of these, definitely check that out. A lot of little things that I think really help enhance your experience with the car that I've learned over, I think, coming up on 3 years now at this point with Model Y, that there's some little things that Tesla didn't get quite right from the factory that I think can be improved with some minimal accessories. So if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, be nice in the comments down below. If you want to see Bethany more, be nice. Bethany, do you have anything else to say? Thanks for being on camera.
You're welcome.
See you guys on the next one. Just real quick, we have arrived and we averaged 239.3 watt-hour per mile in 61.6 miles driving. So again, just the awesome efficiency of the Model Y.